here how many Russian American company employees were here in the period that we're talking about. We know how many vessels came down, and we know, like when Sheffer first showed up, he came on the Isabella, and there were two Native Alaskan sort of employees who came with him on the Isabella. So at first there were three, and then the Discovery or Curie shows up, and the Illman shows up, and we know that more people came on those, but we don't have really crew lists in terms of how many were here, and it would be sort of interesting to track. Like I said, I've started with Sheffer to track where he was on different days, but it would be interesting to get some idea of how many Russian American company employees were here in Waimea versus in Hanapepe versus in Hanalei and Princeville versus left over on Oahu while they had their things going there, and try to figure out where everybody was. And I think that would give much more of a better sense of scale for what kind of presence was here.
And then more descriptions that we may not have.
Yes, yes.
Because, we've never had that access. We need a lot more information.
Yeah, Richard Pierce's book has many descriptions from, it has most of Sheffer's journal in English. It has Tarakanov's account. It has an account of Osipov and a few other people, but it would be interesting to see if there's more that turns up for sure. And I'd definitely like to know how many people were here, because it's not really clear in what we have. Yeah. And the closest reference I know is that it said between 60 and 100 were stranded on Oahu after they were kicked off of Kauai. So, and that was from all over, from Hanalei and everywhere else.
Yeah, I spoke to their Patricia Polanski. She said that she has a copies of all these Russian families over here, but some of them they came before revolution. Some of them were running away from the revolution.
Yes.
So, but she has a lot of her data also, and their scanned documents. I will ask her about specific something in the period of 86, because what happened when the revolution happened, Russians came and tried to bribe Russian people here to come back to Russia.
During the revolution?
Yeah, they were giving the money, go back. They were taking money and go to California. It went to California.
Yeah, we had that colony in Gavia.
There were some people think it was just Russians coming in for the plantations, but if you go to the Big Island, Waikiki, which was part of the Parker Ranch, there was right before the revolution a very large number of Russians who came over and who were doing sheep ranching and cattle ranching in Waikiki. At least 15 family names over there.
Yeah. And then they assimilated with the locals. So just right now, we have a bunch of Russians that, they're local.
So, I think I think there would be a way, given the Russian theme of this place, to tie that kind of story in as part of a signboard somewhere, or something to say that, Russians in Hawaii is not just this one event, but there were, earlier voyages before this was even built. You go back to Hagemeister and Krusenstern, Lisiansky, and all those, but then go straight up into the 1880s, 1890s, and the revolution. Yeah, that would be all good.
So let's do this way. I think for the materials of this your timeline, we're going to create a Google Doc, so everybody will be able to review it, to see it. So Alex is gonna create their access for everybody. So I think we call it redlining, right, in the legal field. So everybody can drop their or edit something. It's gonna be maybe with a different color or something else. So everybody will know who added this or who did this or who deleted this, right? So and then I think it's going to be our I would say a committee a project, right? Pretty much.
Is there a software program that allows you to have a linear, the timelines that go around a big room, so where it's all sort of put out there, and we're going to have one period where we're going to have a whole bunch of details for 2 years,
this way.
where it'd be nice if you could zoom in, and put a whole bunch of stuff on this date.
Because you can do it
zoom
like a
in.
chart.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was a software program. We could just sort of zoom in really tight to one place and sort of put all these details, and then zoom back out so you can see everything to 1854, and then zoom
Do you
back
remember
in.
what the name of the software
I don't know.
for the
It'd be fun.
timeline?
It'd be a fun way to write a history book,
Linear.
linear history at least.
You can do it,
I think we had something in legal field here because we're using it most of the time, like something like that timeline. But I need to call to my office and then like I will share with everybody what the name of the software. I know that for sure that there it is exists.
Google Docs for starters. Sure.
Yeah, all right. So I think everybody will be definitely.
And I think just as a reminder, don't focus just on Elizabeth. but,
Yes.
You know, as you're doing your research, as you're considering themes, you know, think about Alexander and Barclay, and you know, realize that
It's
there's a
part of the
bigger
story.
picture going on. Yeah. Because I mean, any of that research is going to be valuable. How much of it we tell at Paula is, you know, undecided at this point. But you know, who knows? Like you say, if you work with the Princeville Hotel people down the road, I bet they'd be receptive to
Yes.
more interpretive signs, and you know, they probably just don't know. So if we can provide some information to them, I'm sure they'd be glad to incorporate it. Although I must admit, we haven't talked to them, have we?
I talked to one person over there. That he came to me, asked me questions.
I was thinking, this may be premature, but once we have the plan, of what we're gonna do with the timeline, we're gonna have to put a budget to it. Okay? Is that the point that we have to present it to the state so that we can get approval? I'm just wondering. I know there's levels that we have to go through.
Well, the interpretive plan does have a section on budget, and that's where, you know, you've identified your devices, you've identified what you want to do, and then you start putting price tags. Chris knows very well, I'm sure. And, you know, before we get to that point, we can start talking about, you know, where would these funds come from? Because I'm sure it's not going to be cheap if you're talking a visitor center. And if you're incorporating a new restroom into that building, you know, because our restroom's pretty sad looking, it might be worth just kind of rethinking our whole park layout. And there's probably gonna be landscaping, there's gonna be, you know, stabilization. So I mean, there's a big price tag, I'm sure it's gonna
So
take.
it's a huge
There
thing.
would be long-term costs too, right? Because if
Yeah,
we're picturing,
the
I think the
operating costs.
visitor center we're talking about would probably need an air conditioning system and, you know, and other things to.
Always keep
Yeah.
So as I said before, so just like we did estimation back in 2009, it was $12 million at the time, and only $2 million for documents, for the permits. $2 million at the time. Right now, definitely the prices a little bit went up. So.
Price for the improvement sounds right. Price for the document sounds a little high.
Yeah, we
I
were
mean,
shocked
that
too,
much.
but we were
Yeah.
like informed by our architects, like, hey, this is how much it cost.
They were probably thinking an EIS. and-
Yes, everything. That is why this, and it's.
If it includes design and architecture, then yeah, but not, yeah. Essentially.
Yeah.
It's up there.
So that is why we were like, okay, what we're gonna do? And we kind of like, oops, stop, let's see. Yeah, it was very interesting.
I was just wondering, I don't know if this came up the last time and I might have missed it, but at what point does, you know, like, I know there was some talk about a 501c3 and, you know, that kind of organization that takes on maybe the stewardship, or, you know, so I'm just wondering if there was some of that discussion as to what we were looking at. I mean, versus, you know, I guess, like when I hear Auntie's question about, you know, how much the state parks takes on. I mean, I know that we have other models of other parks where there are, you know, maybe it's like say Haena, with Uncle Presley Wan them,
Mhm.
you know, and how their organization, what that kind of collaboration looks like, or I don't know. I'm just wondering if some of that came up the last time, but I missed it at the end, I think.
We do have a curator group already, just like, Nestle is part of a curator group, Hui Makanana Mokana, so is Nepali Coastal Hana. And so there is a curator group that's out there, West Kauai Business or Professional
Right,
Business
right.
Association. They need more people, so call your friends.
Yeah,
But yeah,
those-
they are there. They have a 5-year curator agreement with us.
Okay.
But those are volunteer agreements.
Right, right.
Hui Olaka might be a better example where we have, or we used to have, a long-term lease so that, they're responsible for,
Interpretation.
yeah, for running programs,
Taking care of
volunteers, visitor services. They get a lot of grant money to fix your buildings and do new exhibits. So I mean, I'm thinking maybe more along those lines,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, because West Kauai is not prepared for that.
No,
I mean,
but
I'm
you
in
guys
West-
have done
I'm in the
grants
West Kauai,
before.
yeah. We've done grants before, but
Yeah.
we're not prepared for that. I mean, I can barely buy gas and buy lunches for the guys who clean the fort. So we're not ready for anything like that. Absolutely.
But in the past, it has taken on big grants because all that cleaning in the fort.
Yeah.
the Huge grants.
Well, when is their expiration of the agreement? It's 5 years, you said?
This has been 1 year.
I think we've still got a couple years
Yeah.
yet, because it was 5 years. And, you know, as a volunteer group, you know, they're really just assisting
I know.
with the maintenance of the site.
I know.
And like, he says, I mean, they undertook a major grant effort to remove the canopy trees. And Kikiola, you know, construction company provided all the equipment, the manpower. But yeah, I think.
That was just to get us, you could see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do remember that.
Now we get it to the point where it's
Well,
like.
also to keep the Kiawe thorns from going through the bottoms of everybody's slippers, so.
Yeah,
so-
that's
Yeah.
right. Kiawe trees were actually the easiest to get rid of, was the banyan tree.
Oh, yeah, the bank, yeah.
Nobody wanted banyan wood.
Wasn't there discussion last meeting that there were already a number of nonprofits sort of
Yeah,
who are
Mike-
ancillary
Mike Faya
interested, and
sort
that
of
it would
raised
be,
that.
it would
Yeah.
be premature to crank out a brand new one right now,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Evaluate the capacity of each, and then look at the long-term interest, and if the plan really gets going, and the desired management scheme includes a nonprofit operating the fort and its visitor center, then that would be, before the building takes place, which probably be a couple of years.
Right.
You'd know a couple of years before the building
At least,
is
Yeah.
actually
at least.
complete. Then the organization could be formed at that time concurrently for that purpose. And then, of course, the state can, for the purposes of operations, leases, concessions, et cetera, the state can directly negotiate with nonprofits to do that without having to, say, put it out to a competitive bid process. But of course, the mission of the nonprofit has to meet with the mission that they're going to accomplish within the park. So to form it concurrently with that exact mission in mind would then make perfect sense. But again, that's gonna, we gotta build
Yeah, start
the
over.
interest inside the community itself,
Mhm.
retell the story, get people interested in coming back there and wanting to be part of, like you said, carrying that forward.
But even
It's all-
the statue, right, the Kamui statue,
Yeah, it's on
that's
fire.
another one that's moving behind there, and I think the fort was kind of tagged as
The site.
one of the site where that statue's gonna go, so it's almost like, now we got the story of Kamuli, you gotta put him on the side there too, you can't just tour the fort and, Paulula without talking about Kamuli, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, this thing is gonna grow into something
Yeah.
much different by the
I
time we
mean,
get it done.
part of that 1988 plan, and even before that, there were various different community plans was the visitor center going in was supposed to be at the fort, always at the fort. And it was only because of, Gary Baldwin and all that happened with some money that got let go from Hanapepe and the Mania Theater being redeveloped, that we ended up with a visitor center in town. It didn't start, it was only an opportunity that changed the site, but the site was always supposed to be the Russian fort.
Makes sense to us, it is the entrance to Whiting.
And also the visibility, the whole story of the town is visible. When you look up the valley, you look, toward the churches, you can look towards Kekaha, Niihau. You can imagine the ships all coming, trading with Kamuli.
You fire a cannonball.
They do that at Fort Ross, by the way. They have an active cannon there. They don't fire cannonballs. They let off a cannon there.
They do?
Oh, yeah. That's where
And it doesn't have to be a Russian cannon because they scavenge any cannon
They
put
could
in.
get, yeah, most of them are probably American, but French, everything else.
Where did he do that?
At Fort Ross?
Yeah.
I did it a couple times, but when I was there in the 90s, they have one set up in the yard, and it's right by the well, and they just have they come out and they load it with black powder and they sort of shoot it off. I don't think they've stopped. Have they stopped doing it?
Do they do it for an event or they just?
No, they
Yeah,
do
just
it.
the
So
event.
somebody just goes, hey, it's Tuesday, let's go shoot some.
They have people dressed in period clothes who do sort of living history, and every once in a while, like if a school group comes through or something else, I actually got them. It was around 96 or 97. My mom came through, and my mom got to light that cannon off. And,
Oh, nice.
She hates guns. She hates big stuff like that. It was some wonderful picture of her.
Oh my God.
And, the flagpole, that whole story of Kamuli flying whatever flag was, like, whatever the out-of-town visitor was showing up.
Practically, yeah. But yeah, that's again something else. There's the story of this flag in 4 parts with the cannonballs on it, which he raised as soon as he took down the Russian flag, and we don't have that flag. In essence, for Kauai to understand that was.
But you would fly all the
4
other
cannonballs?
nations' flags too.
He flew the American flag before then, and I don't. Are there other stories
Well,
of
he would-
raising other flags?
No, you would actually, like, if somebody came, like an American ship showed up, he'd fly the American flag. And then he would, if a British ship showed up, he'd,
Change it
yeah,
out.
very, very,
Neat.
and he had, like, I guess, different wardrobes of,
Things to switch into.
so it's very, he's a very interesting character as well.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But
So,
I think really the next step is finishing up some of these things here and then starting to work on our different, timeline stories. Because we can't do much else until we figure out what we're telling the story of.
Right. And I do think that as we tell stories, and anything that gets into the park, it should be clear where the sources of the
Yes.
information are coming
Yes,
from. So, for
exactly.
instance, like I've never heard those stories before, and I'd like to know where they came from. And that's the next thing I want to ask you is like, where did you get that background?
Oral
Because
museums.
and like some cases it's going to be oral history, in some cases, people who carry those stories in town, and other cases it's going to be something else. And, there's the account again that's out on the web now of that this is where the first Russian Orthodox Church was built, and I know nothing to support that beyond people's idea that if this was a Russian fort, well then obviously there would be a Russian Orthodox Church there too, and that's as opposed to there being any documents to suggest that a Russian Orthodox Church was ever built there, and yeah. Anyway, so I always like to know the sources of information when people tell me stories, and so
Yeah, there's still lots of Hawaii Museum.
yeah.
well, that's interesting.
Well, one thing I forgot today, I was putting together a table of kind of different tasks, and just gonna have people kind of step up and say, oh, okay, I'll get started on that, but, we'll save that, I'll try to send that out for the next meeting, but, if there's anything that, you can prepare for the next meeting, send it my way, I'll get it out, you know, through email prior to the meeting, if there's anything to share. Well, before we break, we've got our meeting set June the 1st, it's a Friday. And then, how about the agenda? Are there things that, you'd like to touch on at that next meeting? We'll revisit the mission statement.
Flesh it out,
Yeah.
flesh it out.
Yeah, okay.
Create the historic timeline, yeah, make sure that's done.
Okay, Peter's gonna try to get us something to review before.
Motion.
I'm going to try to get the nomination form, to you, let's say a week before the June 1st meeting. Does that sound fair, like enough time to sort of have it to look
Yeah,
through?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll send it to you, Martha,
Yeah,
and then
I'll send it.
and then you can do a first look through and send it out to everyone else if you feel it's ready. And so that's the main thing I'll work on. Like I said, I've already started this sort of pretty intensive timeline for 1816 and 1817 that I could. It's actually on a calendar, and you guys will see it tonight. But it's on a calendar. But I think it would be good to have something that has like the major significant events. You know, Kamali's grandson dies, burial inside the fort. And so Battle of 1824. You know, these many people we know who died, and
Maybe even a
and-
timeline as
yeah.
much as we can find of that.
Exactly, and so, you know, the execution of Griffiths and 1818, and, there are different sorts of things that happened that were tied to the place as we keep on going through. When we first know that it's being used as a prison after, in a formal sense. And all of that sort of stuff, I think, would be good to carry through right to the dismantling and cannons going into the bay in the 1860s.
That gives you a sense of place too.
Yeah.
And interesting to see why Kamui built over there.
Yeah.
So
Different people stop in for different reasons.
do you know where like the missionary house was?
There were two missionary houses down there, and one, we have a distance away from Kamali's house that Mercy Whitney wrote down, like how far away it was, so you can, depending on where it was away, you draw a circular
Well, there's
line around where
One drawing that says that the view is from someone's house.
There's a drawing of the fort that has a little bit of fort in it. Is that the one you're talking about, or another one?
I think I'm not sure if it's the Bingham sketch, maybe it says that's where he is.
Okay. There were two missionary houses, and Mercy Whitney very carefully describes where the whole compound was, and that was all between the fort and the sea. And so, the first missionary house is hard to place, and then the third missionary house is way upstream, like way off of the 17 acres, when Mercy and by the Battle of 1824, Samuel Whitney and Mercy Whitney were living further up, right on the edge of the Waimea River by a good bit, and that was the third one. I don't know any after that. Yeah.
Did you have where Kamuli had two homes? One, Makai to the ocean, right outside of the fort.
Right.
And
Right.
that was the compound.
Yeah.
From what I understand. And then on the east side
Mhm.
of Paulaula was his parents, that's where they lived.
Okay.
And I understood that where Pioneer is, and there is a stone wall that used to be the old road right off the bridge.
Yeah.
It was right in that corner that he had his second, but that has never been excavated.
Yeah. No, it's outside the area.
The first school was just below on the riverbank for the missionaries. That
Yeah.
was the first school.
Yeah.
Just a one room school for them.
Right.
But these were all grass huts.
Yeah. Well, there was
These were
one.
grass
There's
huts.
one
Yeah.
Kamali in that one that's Makai of the at least I think it's his compound on the Makai side of the fort had actually a stone storage house before the Russians showed up. And something else that I might have mentioned this to you guys before, but there is a journal right now by a guy named Masa Stowe, who was here through the entire War of 1812 and living in the town of Waimea, that is owned by this rich book collector in the Bay Area. He bought it for $50,000. He has it locked up in a safe in his house. And I've had him and tried to schmooze him down in my office, trying to get him to get this out so that we could actually get a chance to look through it, but it's never been digitized or transcribed. And he's into collecting books in history, but he's not into sharing that much.
Doesn't
And
he want his
so,
name all over this?
I don't know. I sent him a copy of my book and had him over for lunch when he was on the Big Island and stuff like that, but I can't wait to get my hands on that, because again, it's gonna give a lot more on Somalese residences and stuff right before this whole thing began, which is where we're really short on information.
What year did you say that was?
That was most of the War of 1812. This guy he was a sailor on the Isabella, which is the same vessel that took Sheffer from New Archangel down to here, but he had been dropped off here before then on the same. It was an American trading vessel, and so it's a history of Waimea in the War of 1812 that'll be in this journal. And apparently it's more than fresh, Trajan clear, rainy, fresh, Trajan clear kind of journal. It's filled with information, he says, but you haven't given me one sentence.
Wow.
So,
They're worth more when you don't tell everybody what's in them. If that's.
It's like Cuomo.
but I sort of feel it's the sort of thing where you wish you could get together enough money as a community to buy the damn thing from this guy and get it down
You
here.
need a Mission Impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
Assault on the house.
Yeah.
Put yourself on clip.
Yeah, break it. Yeah. Okay, who's got black clothing? You can like sneak in, break whose alarm system, go photo the thing real quick. Yeah. It's in really bad shape, he says. So that he said just turning the pages makes him really nervous. So yeah, super fun.
The next meeting.
All the more reason to digitize it.
I
I'd
agree.
like to spend some time, under interpretive center or the visitor center. I don't like the word visitor center. I think interpretive center sounds better. You know, when you think of visitors, you think only of tourists as visitors. But local people are also visitors, but people don't see it that way. So, but if you could spend some time on, kind of
Brainstorm.
massaging the ideas together, and where we can have something to say. Are we gonna have interpretive center, and what might be included in this?
I was also wondering if, I remember that, is it Alexander that did the presentation last time?
Mm-hmm.
I know he did a lot of work and he was sharing that strategic plan.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if that can be shared electronically somehow, because we might be able to use some of that information, and it might be, we don't have to redo a lot of that. So I think I saw a lot of elements in there that there was a lot of thought that went into, what happens at what point, and that might help us have a draft to
Mhm.
I
work.
thought I did send it.
It was? Okay, I'll go look through my emails again, sorry.
Does anybody else remember receiving it?
I think I got some stuff.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
go
no,
look again.
Alexander did, send me
Okay.
the electronic version.
I'll go
I
look.
caught you, I was gonna say, I know you signed in later, so.
I will ask you maybe to post it also on the website, so just there, everybody will have access to that. The other day, let me rehash your suggestion. I spoke the other day on Oahu with one of the representative of Weinberg's estate, and they said, well, you cannot do anything in Hawaii unless you're gonna bring some people from the Department of Tourism to the board. So I just wondering, and I'm discovering, what do you think about this suggestion to communicate with them and also bring them also to there? But why? I'm just asking you, because about Russian Fort, like I told before, I'm learning when I'm driving towards to the canyon. There is no information in the airport. There is no information, how are you gonna learn about it?
But there's a lot of sites that have fallen out of favor,
It's been one.
and because it's not new. I mean, that's what the tourism focus seems to always be on, what is new and different from last time. And so, I mean, a long time ago, what people were sent to was different than it is today. And a lot of it is activity oriented because people make money off of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't make money, going to the fort.
Mhm.
They don't make money, going to different parks or whatever.
Yeah.
So they spend more time talking about other things, or getting you to buy their book because they're telling you about secret places or
Mhm.
whatever. So it's really just a marketing thing.
I see.
It's not that it's not promoted. It's just nobody's asking them to promote it.
I see. Because I just recently I discovered that their Department of Tourism, of State of Hawaii, they just initiated this new program and website and just like promoting all this like sightseeings around Hawaii, and I was like wondering, wow, so they are very active right now. So I was like, maybe we should kind of like also
Should be on.
massage a little bit this side of this problem too. So kind of like thing.
Well, I mean, the person that comes to mind from Hawaii Tourism Authority is Kalani Ka'anana.
Mhm.
And he kind of does a lot of this kind of work, and they give grants to.
But you have to write the proposals.
Oh yeah, and then you have to do a 50% match,
What?
cash match.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
You don't-
What?
There's certain places you have to think about whether you're gonna go approach. for
Yeah,
money.
but if you're doing different, if you're writing different grants, then that can be part of the cash match depending what pot it comes from, right? Because it can't be state for state,
Mm-hmm.
Also,
So-
liaison could be Sukanoho.
right?
So
From
she's
the coun-
the head of the Kauai Visitor Bureau,
Yeah.
and she's very, very proactive
Mhm.
in these kinds of groups.
Mhm.
So she helps us a lot with,
Chris is right, what she said.
Yeah,
She
we-
like the new things that.
Yeah, 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 she
like
does.
the upcoming things.
yeah, so she's probably worth having
Mm-hmm.
here
Yeah.
for part
We
of the
talked about
discussion.
that last time too.
Yeah, we talked about her last
Well,
time.
Yeah, we
also-
did
Yeah.
talk about
And
that
she's
last
on
time.
island, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
she's
think
on
you
it.
don't wanna really promote the site until you figure out how you're gonna protect the site.
Right.
She has a
It's
lot
not
of
ready for more
solutions
people
though.
right now.
And
Right.
she's not pro-tourism, so she has a lot of good ideas
Mhm.
that she can bring to the table as well.
Yeah, well, maybe
I think
why
when
not?
we're ready to start putting into, when we get our thoughts about interpretive devices, that's when you should maybe talk to her about how she thinks they might work,
Mm.
to our targeted audience, part of our targeted audience. But we still need to know what our story is before.
Yeah.
You know,
But I was just trying to kind of like
Uh,
think about another way,
Because
kind of like.
I think
how
it's
to-
too early even to talk about a visitor center until we figure out how we're gonna protect the site, how we wanna enhance and show off the site.
But it's part, it's
Yeah.
important.
Because maybe where you put the visitor center might really be determined by that. Cause it might have to be part of the protection device. I don't know how we're gonna do that. So I think in like the 88 plan, there was the, viewing towers, there's, and how are you gonna keep people out of the site? There's all these questions that need to be addressed. So I don't know if it's studying other sites like this and how do they do it, and figuring out the best way for this one.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need to kind of like address the tunnel issue. We need to address their issue of their people climbing the walls.
I think the stairs are, to use a pun, realizing as notes are rock solid, the stairs, but they go up onto the points, but the walls on the outside aren't, and so if you could count on people to have common sense to walk up a set of stairs and come down, that would be, but you can't count, the common sense doesn't exist.
No, you just like
So,
have to put
so,
rails
yeah,
or
so
something.
you gotta start figuring how to either stabilize and get railings up and have things meet ADA and safety things and all that.
Close it
It
off.
starts to get nuts as soon as you start to really think about it, if you're promoting people going up on those walls. And so in general, it sort of feels that, if there was one viewscape from one of those sets of stairs, that you could sort of have it sort of protected so people can't go farther and they could have the chance
Like
to.
that one restored point, if that's what you.
Just like Alan was saying.
Yeah.
That seems like that would be
So
at
very
least
nice. So turn the point into
a
a
good way
lookout.
to start, but the hardest thing to do, given that people are hot and tired there, is convince them to walk out the same way they came in. Almost everybody wants to haul out and go down to the coast after they've gone inside. And that almost takes an active presence, to stop someone from, because a lot of people look at those and I can get down there, and off they go regardless of what the sign says. So I would like to see this park get to a place where there are active interpreters there who can sort of be there to help and facilitate what's going on. And that costs, again, that takes long-term money, just like air conditioning a building would take long-term money, and taking care of bathrooms and restrooms, that would, already exist, but
It's not a lot of money, it takes political will is what
it takes political will. Okay, good to know. Yeah, but I'd love to see it happen, and I think it could happen in a way that could protect the cultural significance of the place and tell the story, and it's just gonna take a little effort instead of just going, oh, well, what the heck. And I think the island's gotten to the point where it wants it, right? People need to be spread out. We need different kinds of places for people to visit. And so it's not all jammed into one place, and I think we can find a way to do it that respects everybody.
I think the cultural destination is, environmental and cultural destinations are hot right now. It's not so much the parasailing and the zip lines and stuff like that. They wanna come and see the cultural part of the place that they're visiting. So I can see that this being a major destination, in a few years from now, when everybody wants to see, not the luau, they don't wanna go to the luau to find out about Hawaii. They wanna go and find out about places, what happened there, that kind of thing, right? When you go to Mexico, you don't go there for the margarita, you go there to see the ruins. That's what you go there for.
And I don't think that's gonna change, I don't think that's gonna go out of style.
I think if we get a bronze cannon out of the bottom of Waimea Bay and set it back up there and blast the thing off once a day, and it'd have a bigger.
There's a Russian cannon in Bishop Museum.
Yeah. Go off pretty
We
well.
proved that came from here.
No, not necessarily from here, but you
Shucks.
just want a cannon.
We asked for it back, we want
Because
our.
when they dismantled it, they took all the cannon and they sold them.
The
I
cat-
think there's a couple
yeah.
in the bay or something.
The ones from the Kadiak are in Lahaina. They're at the base of the flag post in Lahaina. They don't belong, I mean,
Yeah.
Kadiak never went to Lahaina, so it'd be nice maybe to see, get those repatriated to here. But I don't
At
think
least
they're in
one.
working order.
Just like-
That'll create a war between us
At Kauai Museum, I think there's a cannonball, there's a musket ball that was found in the fort, and then there's a musket that was up in the valley. So that's all the artifacts I know of that are.
That's at the museum?
The musket that was up in the valley is at the museum now?
Yeah.
Because the guys who found it, if it's the same one, the guys who found it brought it down when we were working in 93, 94. It was sort of, the
So, I mean,
stock
there's
was a little
some
rotted
things
away, but
because-
it was a percussion cap musket, yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the things between Kamehameha and Kamualii was, accumulating arms.
Guns,
Sure, yeah. No, I'm glad to know that one ended up in public holding, that's good.
All right.
You done?
Anything else for the agenda next time?
I think that's a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Well, if you have ideas, let me know. I mean, I'll try to put the agenda together, but I appreciate anyone's help. Okay, well, should we adjourn? It is 3:00.
On the notes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Back to work.
There we go.
I was gonna mention to you that I have a friend from Kamchatka.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And I meet her at different United Nations meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a beautiful
Yeah, the cannon, we're
dancer.
gonna go get M&M's.
Not bad.
Yeah. Her name is Tatiana Degay. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but D-E-G-A-I.
The guy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then she recently got her PhD. I want to say at Oregon. I don't know. I think Arizona or Oregon.
I see.
But yeah, young girl, really nice. She works really closely with her grandmother.
Mhm. I see. I see.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow. All right.